सदाशिवसमारम्भां
शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे
गुरुपरम्पराम्
गुरुपरम्पराम्
ॐ सहना
ॐ
भवतु
सहनावतु
सहनौ
सहनौ भुनक्तु
वीर्यं करवावहै
वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै
शान्ति
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति
शान्ति
शान्तिः
That's Hari Om.
Tatsat Hari Om.
So we are on the sixth Anuvaka. So those of you who have the books, Matra Pushpam, the fifth line of the Anuvaka. So we will chant. So Kamayat
Kamayata
Usyam Prajayeti
Bahusyam Prajayeti
Satapotapyat
Satapotapyata
Satapastatva
Satapastapa
Itigam Sarvam Asarjat
Idam Sarvam Asujata
Yadidam Kincha
Yadidam Kimcha
Tat Srishtva
Tat Srishtva
Tadevanupravishat
Tadevanupravishat
Tat Anupravisya
Tad Anupravishya
Satchatyacha Bhavat
Satchatya Bhavat
Niruktam Cha Niruktam Cha
Niruktam cha niruktam cha
Nilayanam Cha Nilayanam Cha
Nilayanam cha nilayanam cha
Vijnanam Cha Vijnanam Cha
Vijnanam cha vijnanam cha
Satyam Chanritam Cha Satyam Abhavat
Satyam chamritam cha satyam bhavat
Ididam Kincha
Yadidam kimcha
Tat Satyam Idya Chakshate
Tat satyam ityachakshate
Tadapyesha Shloko Bhavati
Tadapyesha shloko bhavati.
So I'm just muting you all. So we were looking at the words so kamayat, Brahman, Ishvara, desired. And then we said that for any desire to be, of any purpose, so there is a ichha, the desire, and then you have to have the knowledge to fulfill the desire and the activity. So ichha, jnana, and kriya. Three things are required. Ichha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti. And we saw that Bhagavan's ichha is not binding because it is meant for loka sangraham, for the exhaustion of the karma of people, of the jivas. So having completed the discussion on ichha, now we are going to that which is required to be able to fulfill the ichha, which is jnana, knowledge. So in this case, what is required? What is the product? The product is the universe. And in that universe, it's a very complex product. Each jiva, his punyam and papam has to be visualized. And that too, the punyam and papam, which is fructifying. The prarabdha karma for the jiva has to be visualized, has to be understood by the Bhagavan. And then he has to prepare the infrastructure necessary for that punyam and papam to be exhausted. So the parents, the environment, the individual events, everything has to be prepared. And therefore, this jnana consists in Ishvara visualizing the entire universe. And since the whole universe plus all the jivas, plus their karmas, all these linkages, which are very, very complex, they have to be visualized. Bhagavan has to be omniscient, right? Unless he's omniscient, sarvagnya, this is not possible. And therefore, this understanding, this visualization is over here called tapaha. This is austerity in the form of tapaha. And so you can see sa tapo tapyat, sa tapas tapva. He started to visualize the conceptualization of the universe he has to do. And this we saw in Mundaka, Sarvagnaha, Sarovit. He has to have both these qualities. And once, so here there's a question. There is no question of Bhagavan having a body, right? Why? Because the Panchabhutani has not been yet created. And he has no place to sit also. Why?
There's no location, there's no space.
No space. Akasha has not been created. And therefore, you have to just accept that he visualized. He is an all pervading entity with Maya as his mind. He visualized. And Saha Ataptya Tapaha. He performed the tapas. And having done this tapas, Taptva, right? Sa Tapo Tapyat, he performed this tapas. And Sa Tapas Taptva, having performed the tapas, right? What did he do? Then he has to come. The purpose is over, which means visualization has been done. And therefore, the next thing is idam sarvam asrajat. Asrajata is a verb, action. Therefore, this is Kriya Shakti coming into play. So Bhagavan, what he did, he asrajat, he created what? Sarvam idam, this entire universe. Which means what? Yat kincha idam. Whatever is existing in this universe, that all he created. Okay. Now, another point which we can think of is that in the normal, in the world, also this process is there, right? You desire to do something, then you conceptualize it, you make a plan, and then you implement it, right? So, between the visualization or the conceptualization of the plan and the implementation, right? For example, I draw the blueprint for a building. That is the visualization, the conceptualization. And then the activity to implement has to be done. So a lot of effort is required to convert the conceptualization into into the product. But here remember that one has no tools. He doesn't need to. So sankalpa matrena. By pure sankalpa alone, he converted this conceptualization into the product, the universe. Now, if you find this difficult to understand, we should look at the parallel, the dream universe. The dream universe also, how do you create? Only by sankalpa. It's an effortless creation. You don't do any effort at all, right? The waker projects the dreamer with the desire to have this dream universe. And sankalpa matrena, the dream universe is created. And that is why Shastra says us just as the Swapna Prapancha, the dream universe is mithya. Similarly, this Vyavaharika Prapancha is also mithya because both are created by Sankalpa alone. One is by your Sankalpa, you the Jiva Sankalpa. One is by Ishvara Sankalpa. So, Sankalpa Matrena Ishvaraha Idam Mithya Jagat Asrajataha. By only the Sankalpa, by the wish alone, he created this whole universe. Therefore, these words, Bahusyam Prajayeti, let me become many. It is the conversion of the Avyakta Maya, which is, what is Avyakta Maya? Avyakta Nama Rupa is there in Avyakta Maya. So it is the conversion of that Avyakta Nama Rupa into Vyakta Nama Rupa. Conversion of Avyakta Prapancha into Vyakta Prapancha. Right? So this is the first teaching. We have the reason for the creation of the universe. Ishvara is Nimitta Karana. Okay. And when we say Nimitta Karanam, you're talking about which part of Ishvara? We saw this in yesterday's class also.
Brahman aspect.
Nimitta
Maya.
Karanam is
Brahman.
always Brahman.
Brahman aspect.
Upadana Karanam, when you say it is Maya.
Maya.
Okay. So he created the universe. And we have to go step by step, right? He visualized, he desired, he visualized, he created. Now, at this point of creation, is the universe conscious or inert?
It's
What they say,
inert.
Anupravishya. So unless there is the entry, till that time it will be.
You don't have to go to the next Vakya. He is creating from what?
From Maya.
From Maya.
Maya.
Maya is inert or conscious?
Inert.
Maya is inert. And therefore, at this point, the entire universe is inert.
Inert.
Right. Now, what happens? Now, the anupravishya takes place, the entry. So, tat srishtva, having created, tadeva anupravishat, tada anupravishya. Right. So, tat srishtva, tat here means idam jagat srishtva, having created this universe, which is all jadam, because the upadana karanam, the material cause, which is maya, is inert. Right. Then what do you do? We must not forget what is the purpose of the creation of the universe. He has to ensure that the jivas, they exhaust the prarabdha, they experience the effects of prarabdha. And the jiva has to be conscious, and therefore, tadeva anupravishat. Tad eva. Tad there is Ishvara, that Brahman, that Ishvara himself. Tad eva, he himself, anupravishat, he enters the world as the jivas. Right? This portion is a very, very important portion. It is called Anupravesha Vakyam. And there's a very elaborate commentary by Shankaracharya on this. To understand this particular portion, let us go back to the dream example. You are the waker, right? Now you are going to sleep. When you go to sleep, what is the first thing the waker does? He's falling asleep, right? What is the first thing happens when you fall asleep?
The body. I dropped the. Not I. The body is dropped like the sense. No, knowing the sthula shariram.
No, it's
Are,
very
are we
simple.
talking about that or
Once the waker is slept, who emerges?
dreamer?
Therefore,
Tejas.
the first thing you do
Tejas.
is the Vishwa, when he sleeps,
Yeah.
while falling asleep, he projects the Tejasa. He
Tejas.
projects the dreamer, right? This dreamer goes on to create the dream world. First, I mean, all these things happen simultaneously because we don't get to analyze it in dream. But once the dream is created, look at it in steps. Wake up, fall asleep, simultaneously at the point of sleep, projecting the dreamer. The dreamer, if you now going to break it into sequence, the dreamer, the first thing he does, he creates the dream world. Once having created the dream world, he himself, anupravishata, enters the dream world as what? As the jiva, as the tiger, as the world, as everything. So in that dream world, I, the waker alone, ultimately, am the world, am the person running from the tiger, and am the tiger also. This is the idea. Anupravishata. Everything that you see in the dream is nothing but the waker. Similarly, everything that you see in this world is nothing but Ishvara. So Ishvara, having created the world, enters the dream world and enters the world as Jiva also. Right. So you have to again understand the mechanism behind the Anupravishan, for which is the dreamer is the best example. So you have to ask, who is the experiencer of the dream world? The answer is that ultimately it is the creator of the dream, who at we can say is dreamer, but who creates the dreamer? The waker, the Vishwa. Therefore, Vishwa himself is the experiencer of the dream. And then you have to understand how this works. What is the process step by step? So I am Vishwa identified with my physical body, right? As waker. Then I am going to sleep. I lie down, put off the lights, close my eyes, do some meditation, and I fall asleep. The moment I fall asleep, I stop identifying with the physical body. It is not that when I say the dreamer is projected, there is a different I. What is happening? There is only one I, the Atma. So in the waking state, that Atma is identified with Sthula Shariram and is known as Vishwa. When you fall asleep, and when I say that the waker has projected the dreamer, Vishwa has projected the Taijasa, you have to explain it as what? That I, Atma, have dropped my identification with Sthula Shariram and I'm now identified only with Sukshma Shariram. Remember, the waker identifies with all the three bodies. As a dreamer, you have dropped your identification with the Sthula Shariram. Your Vyavaharika body is put aside, and in the dream, you create a special body. What is that body called?
Swapna Shariram.
Beg your pardon?
Swapna Shariram.
Swapna Shariram. Which level of reality does it belong to?
Pratibhasika.
Pratibhasika. Therefore, you have dropped
So,
your
Acharyaji, I had a question. Can I ask now?
Yeah, please.
So, while drawing a similarity with a dream, in Ishvara creating this world, Ishvara is also creating as a sankalpa matrena, and so why is it not there called pratibhasika?
Because it is Vyavaharika. You are looking at the three levels of reality. If Ishvara is taken as Paramarthika, Brahman is taken as Paramarthika, then one lower level is Vyavaharika. You as a Jiva are Vyavaharika, so one level lower is Pratibhasika.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Right. So you have dropped your Vyavaharika body. Remember, it is you, the Atma, right? You have dropped your Vyavaharika body and you have picked up your Pratibhasika body. So for all purposes, you are not there in Jagat. So your body is there, but your consciousness is now attached or rather identified with the Pratibhasika Sharira. So in fact, it is said, This is the reason why Shastra says that the moment you wake up, you should take a bath. Can you get the connection? When you have dropped your Vyavaharika body, that body is as if dead. And therefore it is ashaucham. It is unclean. And just like there is a reason why when you go to the house of a person who has died, you are associated with that dead body is ashaucham. And therefore you go back and have a bath. Right? First thing you do traditionally when you visit a crematorium or a that person's house, the first thing that you do traditionally is you must have a bath before touching anything. In fact, in the old houses, especially, I remember my house in Kerala, the bathroom was outside. So you go there, have a bath, change your clothes, then only you go inside. Right. So therefore, this physical body which you have dropped during dream is dead. And that is why when you wake up, have been associated with that dead body. Therefore, you should have a bath. Just by the way, okay. Therefore, the waker, who is the creator, and therefore he has created the dream world. The waker himself turns into the dreamer, identified with the dream body. Once that is done, you are no longer the waker. That's the important point here. You are the waker with the physical body, which in Vyavaharika. But what has happened in the dream? You have dropped that physical body. You have identified, dropped meaning you have stopped the identification with the physical body, and now you are as identified with the subtle body, with the pratibhasika sharira. Subtle body is one thing, but you have created another body for the dream. Right? So this Tajasa, he is of course identified with subtle body. But remember that for the purpose of the dream, there is another physical body created. Am I making sense? In the waking state, you have the Vyavaharika, physical body, subtle body, and causal body. In the dream world, you have dropped the Vyavaharika physical body. You have created another Pratibhasika physical body. You are identified with that. Subtle body continues, causal body continues. But the physical body you have changed. That's the very important point here. That is the Anupravishata. You have changed the physical body. You have now a Pratibhasika body which you are identified with. Therefore, you are no longer the creator of the dream world. You have become the creation itself, part of the creation. Having become part of the creation, you think that you are a limited person. I hope I'm making sense. So the consciousness principle, remember, the Atma in the dreamer, Tajasa, and the waker, Vishwa, are the same. But the bodies are different. The body in Vyavaharika is physical, Vyavaharika body. The body in dream is physical, but Pratibhasika body. The experiencer of the world, Vyavaharika world, and the Swapna Prapancha are the same. But the medium of experience is different. One is Sthula Shariram, Sthula Vyavaharika Shariram. The other is Swapna Pratibhasika Shariram. Right? How will you know? How will you prove that it is the waker alone who has entered the dream world as the dreamer? You have to look at what is the common link. What is the common link between the Vyavaharika Prapancha and the Swapna prapancha, pratimhasika prapancha.
The mind.
Upon waking up, the waker still remembers.
Correct. So what does it mean? What is the common link?
So the
Sakshi.
experiencer is the same. Is
Yes.
the
So
one and the
the
same.
sakshi to the dream is the same as the sakshi to the waking world. That is the point. The sakshi to the dream and the sakshi to the waking world is the same. What is sakshi? What is the definition of sakshi? It is not RC.
OC reflected in
That
the mind.
aspect of
Oh, sorry.
Associated.
OC in the mind.
Okay,
OC in.
there's some confusion, so let me say again.
It's
OC reflected in the mind is RC,
RC. Yes.
not the sakshi. Right? OC, which is as if enclosed in the mind, as if enclosed. That is the sakshi. So unless the sakshi of the Vyavaharika Prapancha and the Pratibhasika Prapancha are the same, the Vishwa, the waker, will not remember the dream. When I am within the dream, I have identified with Pratibhasika Shariram. Pratibhasika Sthula Shariram. And therefore, I don't remember that I am the waker. And therefore, I don't know that I am the creator. And therefore, I am very, very limited. So here the point is whether you are the cause, karanam, or the karyam. What is the karanam? Whether you are the creator of the dream universe or the karyam, or whether you are the dream universe itself, depends upon which body you are identified with. The waker's body or the dream body. Dream body meaning pratibhasika sharira, which is different from the waker's body. Right? Now you have to extend this analogy. Whenever I, the Atma, have forgotten my real body and I'm identified with the Vyavaharika Shariram, the waker's body, I feel I am limited and I am a Jiva. When I drop the identification with the waker's body, with the Jivatma's body, then I am Paramatma. And from that Paramatma alone, the whole creation has been created. Therefore, Tad Srishtva. Having created this universe, he has created three universes. What are they? Come on, we have not forgotten Tattva, have we?
Sorry, Acharya, I just missed the question. You said
Tat Srishtva means having created the universe, Prapancha. And I said that it is not one Prapancha, but three Prapanchas.
Jagrat Swapna. Are we talking about Jagrat Prapancha, Swapna Prapancha?
You can say that. Jagrat, Swapna, and or you can say
Sushupti.
Sthula Prapancha, Sukshma
Sukshma
Prapancha,
Prapancha.
and Karana Prapancha. Similarly, there are three bodies also. What has happened? Tad Anupravishya. He has entered the universe, all the three universes, and having entered the bodies, all the transactions which are done by the Paramatma appear to be done by the Jivatma. The Paramatma has now become Jivatma. Therefore, the Jivatma now thinks that he is a limited entity and Paramatma is somebody separate. Right? And what does Shastra say? Shastra says you have to remember Kaivalya Upanishad. What is that? Sa eva mayo parimohitatma shariramaasthaya karoti sarvam striyannapānādi vichitra bhogaihi sa eva jagrat paritriptameti. What does it mean? Long, long ago. Sa
Acharya,
eva.
we haven't done Kaivalya.
You haven't.
Yeah, the Upanishad 2 group has not.
Upanishad 2 group has not. Okay. So take a we'll have it. I was the impression we did it. Anyway, so we can always do that after this small Upanishad. So this is Sa eva, that very same Paramatma. Maya parimohita atma. With the mind clouded by Maya, Sharira Masthaya, he identifies with the Jiva's body. Karoti Sarvam, does all the actions. Where Jagrat, in the waking state. And Sa eva, that same Jiva, Paritriptameti, thinks that he is becoming happy. Stri Annapani Adi Vichitra Bhogai, through various sense objects like woman, food, and drink. So he is saying that this Paramatma who has no needs, who is complete by himself, having entered the Jivatma's body, he thinks that he is now limited. Therefore, he puts on a physical body. He enjoys interacting with the world, and in the interaction, he thinks that he is being happy. Okay. Now, here Shankara introduces a Purva Pakshi. So, here that Purva Pakshi is important, so we'll look at it. This Purva Pakshi says that Ishvara himself has created the universe. That I accept. But when you are saying that Ishvara is entering that universe, it is not logical, because it is like saying that clay produces the pot and then enter the pot. Right? So this is a very nice little objection that he makes, Purvapakshi. He says, you are saying that Ishvara is creating the world and then entering the world. You convert that into the pot example. You are saying that the pot is produced from the clay and then the clay enters the pot. But that is illogical, because there is no clay separate from the pot. Do you understand? And therefore, he says, Shankaraji, you are confused. So he gives his own version. He says, your interpretation of the Anupravashada Vakyam is wrong. Let me give you my interpretation. So he says, clay has two aspects. One is wet clay and one is dry clay. What happens? The wet clay gets converted into the pot. Then the dry clay enters the pot. The dry powdered clay enters the pot. That is how you should interpret Anupravishya. And therefore he says, similarly, Brahman has two parts. One part becomes inert universe. The other part becomes the conscious Jivan. It sounds very, very convincing, right? Why does it sound convincing?
Brahman is partless. Can't have two parts.
Yeah. So, but you can always interpret as Maya becomes the universe and then Brahman enters Maya. This is the idea that the Purvapakshi expressing. The answer is not appropriate. I mean, the example is not appropriate for a simple reason. What is the difference between the wet clay and dry clay and Brahman? So as you said, wet clay and dry clay means two parts. And therefore the dry clay, the dry powdered clay is not all pervading and therefore can enter the wet part. But Brahman is all pervading and therefore how can it enter? Because it's already there. All pervading means already there. How can it enter? And then Purvakshi says, no, no, let me explain. He says, your idea that Brahman has no parts, it is not correct. Right? So Brahman has, you should look at your hand entering your mouth. So there are three things: hand, mouth, and empty space. And therefore, your hand can enter the empty space in your mouth. Similarly, Brahman can enter the universe. So this is dismissed with one very simple quotation. We say, Shruti says, Brahman has no parts, therefore we cannot accept your suggestion. Then Purvapakshi says that we can say that entry of Brahman is actually the reflected consciousness in the mind of all the jivas. And he gives an example. When the sun is reflected off the water in a vessel, do you not say that the sun has entered the water? It has formed a reflection. Remember that we, as Vedantins, this theory we accept that the reflection of the sun is the entry of sun into water. Right? In fact, in Chandogya Upanishad, there's also Anupravesha Shruti. In Brihadaranyaka Upanishad also there is Anupravesha Shruti. And in both these Upanishads, Shankara himself says that yes, formation of the RC can be accepted as the Anupravesha of Brahman. So you must remember that there are different Vashyams and there are different answers. But this is a junior answer. The answer saying that the reflected consciousness can be taken as the entry of Brahman is, of course, an answer accepted by Shastram, by Shankaracharya himself, and therefore by us. But here, he gives a much more advanced answer. So he says, even though you can generally take the meaning of RC as reflected consciousness, the Sanskrit term is Pratibimba Chaitanya, reflected consciousness. But he says the correct statement, a more advanced, a more correct statement. He's saying Pratibimba Chaitanyam is not wrong, but it is for a junior student. For a senior student, you should replace that phrase with Pratibimba Abhasa Chaitanya. There is a very, very subtle difference. Pratibimba Chaitanya means reflected consciousness. Pratibimba Abhasa Chaitanya means something which looks like reflected consciousness. So you should remember this very carefully. Pratibimba Abhasa Chaitanya is not reflected consciousness, something which is very similar to reflected consciousness. So why is such an interpretation being given? It's very simple. I mean, it doesn't occur to us until Shankara says so. But once he says so, it becomes very simple. What is the difference? So I will ask you the question. Do some manana on it. What is the difference between the sun being reflected in the water and Brahman or consciousness being reflected in the mind? Is there any difference at all?
Yes, sun is not there. When we say sun is reflected in water,
Sun is not all pervading.
yeah.
Is not, sun rays are not there everywhere. And
No, you take the example of sun reflected in the lake. So the sun is definitely there. Its rays are definitely hitting the lake.
so both the sun and the reflection belong to the same order of reality. And while Brahman and
Water and sun are same order of reality.
Excellent. So the sun is Vyavaharika, the lake is Vyavaharika, the mind is Vyavaharika, but Brahman is Paramarthika. So in the question of the sun being reflected in the water, there are two entities, both having equal Satya. But if you take the mind as Mithya, it really, the Mithya entity, remember, is not different from the substratum. Therefore, when you say mind is Mithya, you are saying that mind is really dependent upon Brahman and does not exist as a separate independent entity. So, in the case of the sun and the water, there are two entities. In the case of Brahman and mind, there is only one entity. And when there is only one entity, you cannot really use the term reflected consciousness. Pratibimba Chaitanyam cannot be used. Therefore, the usage of the term Pratibimba Chaitanyam is a compromise used, meant for initial understanding. As your understanding grows, you have to understand that both, there are no two different levels of reality over here, independent reality, right? So there is, while we are saying one is Paramarthika and one is Vyavaharika, really speaking, there is no Vyavaharika separate from the Paramarthika. And therefore, what? Therefore, unless there are two entities, how can one entity be reflected in the other entity? Therefore, if you say reflected consciousness, it is a compromised usage. And therefore, you have to say that while we accept that a reflection is there, you have to understand that there is no second entity, no real second entity like the mind, which can reflect Brahman. And therefore, why is all this argument being given? The argument is being given for to refute the Purvabakshi, who said that you can say that Brahman's entry is a reflection. And therefore he says, Shankara says, therefore, your argument that the Anupravisha, the entry of Brahman into the Jiva, is the reflected consciousness, it can be not accepted. Okay. I want confirmation from you that you understood. Any doubts? Anybody?
No, sir. We take up the example of the sun and water only to show that in our example, the sun is supposed to be like Brahman, isn't it? So then,
Yes.
when we say that sun and water are both Vyavaharika, have we taken the right example, or it has got its own limitations? So we have just taken.
There is no other example possible. All examples are in Vyavaharika. And
And
therefore,
they
the
have their own
limitation of
limit.
Vyavaharika will
Yeah.
apply. Okay.
Okay. Yes.
So remember the Anupravisha Vakyam, which occurs in different interpretations. The idea of telling you all this is that as we study different Upanishads, you will find Anupravisha where everywhere, more or less. And therefore, Shankara himself has taken two interpretations. One in Chandogya, which says Arsa is okay as an interpretation. And one in Taitriya here, where he says it is as if a reflection, not really a reflection, because there are no two different entities. Reflection means one entity is reflected in another entity.
Mhm.
And since two reflections, two entities are not there, It is only abhasa, as if. Okay.
Yes.
So first interpretation is Brahman entered all the minds as RC. Therefore, the formation of the RC in the mind is the Anupravesha. The second interpretation is that is not correct because there is no reflection. Therefore, it is Brahman who is available, recognizable in the mind. Right?
Yes.
The net effect is the same. When RC is formed or is available, the inert mind becomes sentient. So you remember that wherever RC is there, OC has to be present. You cannot have only RC. We normally say RC is OC plus RM, which indicates what? The equation itself indicates that unless OC is there, the RC
Yes.
cannot be there. Therefore, in the mind, you have a mixture of RC, OC, and of course, the mind itself, the RM is there. What is important here? In the thought, I am. I am what? Both RC and OC are available. In the I thought, RC and OC are available. And this I thought, in the I thought, the OC part is available. In the I thought, the RC part is available. It's an important idea. When you say I am, remember there are two consciousnesses available, OC and RC. In that I thought, the OC part is called Sakshi Chaitanya. Right? Remember that? The RC part is called what?
Chidabhasa.
Chidabhasa.
Yes, Chidabhasa is RC only.
The
It's called.
Pramata.
Pramata.
Is a Pramata. Therefore, in the I thought, there are two things, Pramata and OC. Remember? So, whenever you say that, you can claim yourself either as Pramata or as Sakshi, and that is the whole problem. All of us claim ourselves as Pramata. Remember that the word Sakshi cannot be applied to RC. That is lesson number one. Sakshi is not RC, which of course is very evident when you translate it to our terms. Our terms, Sakshi means OC. OC is not RC. But when you say OC is not RC, you have to very, very carefully note that OC, the Sakshi in you is not, I will repeat, is not the all-pervading consciousness. The Sakshi in me is not the all-pervading consciousness. The Sakshi in me is the consciousness as if enclosed in my mind. Very, very important idea. This is how Shruti reveals that Brahman is the Sakshi obtaining in the I thought along with the RC. The RC obtaining in the I thought is Pramata. The Sakshi, which is the cause of the RC in the I thought, is Sakshi Chaitanya. The thought itself is what? The reflecting medium. So when I am going to say Aham Brahma Asmi, in that I thought, which has RM, RC, and Sakshi, Manaha, Chidabhasa, and Sakshi Chaitanyam. You have to, when you are meditating on Aham Brahma Asmi, you have to drop the RM, and you have to drop the RC. The mind and Chidabhasa has to be dropped. What remains is the Sakshi Chaitanyam, which is not the all-pervading consciousness, but it is the mind, this consciousness as if enclosed in the mind, which we call consciousness available in the mind. And that's why Yo Veda Dehetam Guhaya, that which is available in the mind. So Brahman enters the mind as RC. Okay. Anupravishya means Brahman enters the mind as the RC. RC is not separate from OC. Even though Brahman enters the mind as RC, that Brahman available in the mind as the OC, available in the mind as the OC, is called Sakshi Chaitanya. That important idea we should recognize. Okay, why does Shruti talk about Anupravishya, about the entry? Shankara says, because that consciousness aspect of Brahman is not available anywhere else other than in the mind. And in the mind, it is available as what? As the Sakshi Chaitanya. Okay. Is Brahman available everywhere as Sat and as Chit and as Ananda? Brahman is available everywhere. Why?
Brahman is available everywhere, but can only be recognized where there's a Sukshma Sharira, because that has the capacity to reflect the.
Yeah, but why is Brahman available everywhere is the question. I'm drumming this again and again and again. Why is Brahman everywhere is the question. It is very simple. Because there is nothing separate from Brahman. Sarvam Brahman. Everything is Brahman alone. Everything, even Mithya, is Brahman alone. And therefore, Brahman is available everywhere as the Sat principle. As whatever exists is Brahman. That is what is meant by Sat. Whatever exists is Brahman. But for recognizing that Sat, you require Chit. And that Chit, though available everywhere, I can recognize that Chit only as my Sakshi, only as Sakshi Chaitanya. Right? I can't recognize the consciousness available in your mind. You cannot recognize the consciousness available in my mind. And therefore, the essential condition for consciousness to be recognized is it should be available in the mind. And that's why we say, as if enclosed by the mind, that is the Sakshi. Right? And again, when I say mind over here, that RM plus RC has not to be forgotten. Therefore, the Sakshi can be recognized only in the RC of the same person. My RC can recognize my Sakshi. It cannot recognize your Sakshi, your RC, your Sakshi. Your Sakshi, only your Chidhavasa can recognize. My Sakshi, only my Chidhavasa can recognize. Right? So, to explain a bit further, consider my hand. Right? This is a hand, and I don't know, so light is there falling on the hand. Now, if the light is not there, the hand will not be visible. And therefore, we say that the light enables us to see the hand. The light is therefore the revealer, prakashaka, and the hand is the prakashya, the revealed. But there is a reverse side to this. What is the reverse side? The light cannot be recognized until the hand is there. Do you agree?
Yes, this is also the fifth point of the 5 points of
This is the
consciousness.
fifth point. Correct. So just as so there's a mutual dependence. If you want the hand to be recognized, the light has to be there. If you want the light to be recognized, the reflecting medium has to be there. Therefore, the hand is dependent on the light for its being seen. But when you say the reverse, you have to be careful. The light is dependent on the hand for its recognition. If the hand is not there, the light cannot be recognized. It doesn't mean the light is not there. Now you have to extend that. Atma, the Chit aspect, consciousness in pure form, cannot be recognized without the reflecting medium, the mind. Right? Others cannot recognize it. It's a fact. But even you cannot utter the words I am unless you have the mind. Therefore, consciousness reveals the mind. The mind enables the consciousness to be manifest, to be seen. A very, very important rule of Vedanta. It is only at the uh, crossing, at the junction, at the sandhi, where consciousness and mind join, that you can say, I am. Self-awareness is possible only in the presence of mind and consciousness, which means what? In the presence of the RC only, you can say that I am the Sakshi. Okay, so to repeat once again, this I am has got three components: mind, RM, Pramata, RC, and Sakshi, OC. And because of this I am thought, Brahman can be recognized, important. Brahman can be recognized as the Sakshi aspect of I am. Right? You are recognizing Brahman as the Sakshi aspect of I am only because the mind is the tool by which Brahman can be recognized. And a very important point here, the Sakshi status of Brahman is very, very critical. And even though you are not only Sakshi, you are Brahman. But Brahman has a Sakshi status. That Sakshi status is that aspect of Brahman which is enclosed in the mind. And the mind is the reflecting medium for Brahman. Therefore, the RC, which is as if consciousness reflected in the mind, the RC is the only place where you can say, I am Sakshi. Remember that I am Sakshi is slightly different from I am Brahman. And that's what Shastra says that Sakshi status is very, very critical. You have to soak in that Sakshi status for a very, very, very long time. Why? Because Sakshi Bhava is the fundamental root for Brahma Bhava, and therefore Sakshi Bhava has to be retained for a very, very long time. Because all of us have got the RC there also. And RC is Jiva Bhava. And if you soak in Jiva Bhava, you will remain samsari. Jiva Bhava is there, but Sakshi Bhava is also there. So shift your attention from Jiva Bhava to Sakshi Bhava. Remain in that Sakshi Bhava for as long as possible until the Sakshi Bhava replaces or weakens considerably the Jiva Bhava. Once Jiva Bhava has been completely weakened, then Sakshi Bhava can be replaced by Brahma Bhava. So Brahma Bhava, I am Brahman, can happen only if you are thoroughly soaked in I am Sakshi. Once Sakshi has, once Jiva Bhava, RC, has been eliminated, pulled out by its roots from the subconsciousness, then and only then, once the RC identification has been completely pulled out from the subconsciousness, then only you can let go of Sakshi and then you can say, I am not Sakshi also, not before that. Right? So from Pramatra Bhava, from the Pramata, I have to come to Sakshi Bhava and there remain for a very, very long time, soaked in that sauce. So with this, we'll stop for today.
So Acharya Ji, the one with both the Jiva Bhava and Sakshi Bhava, is he also referred to as Jivan Mukta? As long as the Brahma Bhava,
you have to decide which one is which one is dominant. If Jiva Bhava is dominant, then you are unlikely to be able to claim Sakshi Bhava.
And the one who has both, if he continues to...
Everybody has both. But unless the Sakshi Bhava becomes dominant, the benefits of Jivan Mukti won't be there. You may know you are Brahman, but benefits will not flow.
That is why we continue to attend your classes.
That is the only reason why you have to remain soaked in that pickle. Okay, so with this we'll stop. Thank you for your patience. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat Om Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Ravi.